Hey, what's going on, everybody? Boy, look at that microphone, very, very prominent in the corner there. So this one is kind of a bonus, additional video that I wanted to do after the Girls Rules finale, just kind of going off the cuff, not really going scripted. I got like barely any notes on this one. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do two things. I'm gonna do a couple off the rip pitches about where to go and what to do with the franchise. And I'm gonna do a bit of a ranking. Gonna rank these weird movies by where I believe that they should fit in a tier list based off of my own opinion of what I think is the best and the worst. So let's talk quickly about just kind of what do we do with this franchise? Where do we go? Where do we take it? So well, there's a couple different places we can take it. So I got three ideas sitting here. I'll go from most realistic to maybe least realistic. So most realistic, maybe a Girls Rules 2. I called it Girls Rules 2 Beta Babes. I think it'd be a nice way to rope in, kind of have a girls equivalent of a beta house, having them go to college, experience the pressures of like getting thrown into a sorority, seeing how their sex lives change as like young women, because I think that the sexual dynamics and expectations of women probably change a little bit between high school and college. I think you can do a lot of exploring with that if you actually get some solid talent behind it. I think all the girls are interesting enough characters to go on their own, but if you end up picking two, I think it'll probably end up being Annie and Stephanie. As much as I think you can do more with Michelle and Kayla, I think the two kind of breakout characters of Girls Rules probably ended up being Annie and Stephanie, because you want to have a Stifler in there, or maybe they get one of Annie's cousins. Maybe that's who shows them around. Stephanie has this older cousin, Stacy, fucking Stacy Stifler. Bring her in, make her real. Hashtag Stacy Stifler. And they use her. She's the guide. Shows them around campus. And can we also show them in like a fucking classroom? I think Girls Rules did. And I think Book of Love did it a little bit too. But like we saw no fucking classrooms in Beta House at all. Like I don't think we saw a room. I think it was all like a dorm room and then the frat house. But yeah, I think that'd be an interesting place to go, and just kind of seeing the antics that they get into through all that. And if you want to bring Grant in, you can bring Grant in and see, maybe you can just have Annie deal with the challenge of being in a relationship with someone in the middle of university, and maybe grappling differently with what that's like with someone who's more her age. Or you could do maybe a thing where like not so much introducing another love interest, but maybe they're in a situationship. Maybe that's where you do it, and her kind of grappling is like, okay, how do I move forward with this situationship instead of us having like a full blown relationship? I think that's a little bit more realistic to what a lot of teens are experiencing. So that's kind of my mini pitch for if you want to do a sequel to Girls Rules set at college, have them experience those adventures. So do this whole sorority thing and kind of flip the script on Beta House. I think it would be an interesting direction to go. Maybe you can have them unite and get along with the Geek House after all these years, and maybe have a nice cool cameo from Eric and Dwight, and bring back fucking Eugene Levy. That man is a gift. Speaking of Eugene Levy, Noah Levenstein Chronicles. Do prequels about Noah Levenstein's experiences, because he was so intrinsically tied. And this was actually a suggestion from someone in a comment on one of the videos. They're like, what if they did a backstory to Noah Levenstein? I think that's actually a pretty good idea. I think there's a lot of room to explore that, like kind of seeing Noah when he was younger, growing up in like the 60s and 70s and shit, and kind of how sex was different, and how, him using drugs and freedom, and you could probably do it all in one or two movies. If you really wanted to have the balls to break it up, you could have what led to his events being the last winner of the Greek Olympiad. So that ties into Beta House. You could have him founding the Naked Mile. You could have him going to his foreign trip. That might be a really fun one. Him going to, I believe it was Germany, and how he discovered the German book of love that inspired him to write the original Bible. And I think that ties into multiple stories within it. So yeah, do like a Noah Levinstein prequel. It might need a little bit of a bigger budget and some better writers, but I think you could be really creative with that rather than just rehashing it and making Noah this more distinct character. So kind of helping us as viewers understand how he became the man that he was, and kind of seeing those awkwardness that, and see where Jim gets that from, but also kind of this coolness and how he, had as much sex as he did. So kind of how he used his geekiness or his dorkiness at the time, and how it was read differently. So what was cool to him when he was young was different from what was cool to Jim growing up, which is different from what's cool now. So you can do that. And then the last one I pitched, I mentioned it in my reunion video, American Funeral. Do a reunion, another reunion, essentially be like Reunion 2. Have the cast from the original kind of grappling with loss. How do a bunch of people grapple with the death of someone that was significant to them? I vote Stifler dies. Realistically, maybe they'd probably do Finch, but I think Stifler should be the one to go. He probably has the highest likelihood of living a reckless enough life where he's probably at risk to do that and die when he's only like in his 40s. And you can still have him in like flashbacks and shit. It's like, man, the last time I remember Stifler, we were doing such and such and flashback to it. Or it's like where I saw him doing this, or we were trying to connect, and just like maybe that could be an opportunity to give a little bit more growth to Stifler as a character in death, to be like, why do we like this guy? Why do we celebrate him and appreciate him beyond him being just like a happy-go-lucky, careless douchebag? Like, what does he contribute to others in their lives that makes them better, other than just like, hey, he's the guy that helped us get laid, and he has fun. He opens us up to having fun and not being boring. It's like, yeah, but he's still a dick and not really a good person. He's kind of a creep. I hear fucking molesting strangers and still a bit homophobic. He's not like a great guy I would really want to be in company with. So I think having Jim and Finch and Oz and Kevin dealing with like that significant loss of a guy that they grew to turn into a friend, I think that could be really something them to process, and where they are in life. Maybe Kevin has a kid and he's dealing with that and kind of going to Jim for advice, and Jim's talking about how he's like raised his son, and how their relationship dynamic has changed since the last time they met during reunion back in fucking 2011 2012, and how, because it's been almost 10 years since that reunion. And the actors aren't getting any younger, so I think it'd be interesting to navigate. How do you deal with, you can deal with growing on and moving on beyond high school, but how do you deal with life after that? What is your new normal, and like what happens, and what things do you bring with you once you're reaching a level of age where you're starting to feel out of touch? And I think what would be really cool is bring in some of these spin-off actors. Bring in if it's a funeral for a Stifler, bring in Stephanie, bring in Dwight, bring in Eric, bring in Matt, his younger brother. Bring in those actors from the spin-off movies. And I think that being a final movie, you do your Girls Rules 2, you do your Noah Levinstein Chronicles. But this is the end. It's where it stops. We see everybody come in. It's your Avengers moment with all the Stifler cousins, and people that were like impacted by his life and his legacy. And I think the final word should probably on Stifler and his experiences should maybe come from Noah Levinstein. He's been a prominent character in the franchise, and his experiences with Steven have been interesting. So yeah, I think that's the way to do it. Now, with all that out the way, all that said, transition, there it is. So let's get into this ranking system. So we got my ranks over here. We got, let me turn, it would very much help if I turned the cursor on. There we go. Booty boop. Let's see if it shows up. There we go. So we got 5 rankings here. We have good, watchable, exists, basura, trash, and I believe the last one is unwatchable. So these are your rankings. This is your not even S. I'll give you A, your B, your C, D, and your fucking F tier. So let's start with the first one, the original American Pie itself. Where are we putting it? Where is it gonna go? Where do I stop? It is good. It's a good movie. It's simple. It's straightforward, but I think the characters are likable enough that you can still get some entertainment out of it. I think especially for like guys, it's a pretty entertaining movie. I think there's some solid basic jokes in there. The whole sequence of him dancing naked on the webcam. I think it's stupid, dumb 90s humor. It's a very easy humor to get into, and I think that's why it's honestly it's a good movie. It's good. It's entertaining. It's dumb fun that you can enjoy with a bunch of people, either ironically or unironically. So I think that's what some of the things that benefits it. So let's go in chronological order. So 2. Despite the fact that 2 has, not a huge plot other than Jim trying to sleep with Nadia, I think there are some things that it does better with the worst ones in terms of care. The first one, the worst one. So I think I'm gonna put it. Actually, I think I'm gonna put it in good. I think it's still a pretty entertaining little flick. That whole sequence with the 2 bisexual women, as bad as it is, that shit was funny. It was goofy. It was funny. Yeah, I think it's good. It's a good movie. It has some pretty funny jokes. It also sets up the relationship between Jim and Michelle and kind of expands upon it from the last movie. They have very nice chemistry with one another. Yeah, I think it's a good entertaining time. I think in some regards it's a little bit better than the first one because it expands on a couple things, but it's also set during a summer vacation, and it kind of forces the characters to grapple with different issues than just having sex, like Oz being in a long distance relationship, which inevitably ends up folding, or Kevin learning to get over Vicky and kind of adapting to that, which is a storyline that now that I think about it, they retread a tiny bit in Reunion, but yeah. So that gets it good for me. What's next? We have American Wedding. No, that's Reunion. Where is it? Wedding. Side note, these movies have some of the worst movie art that I've ever seen for a film. The Photoshop jobs on these are horrendous. So where is it going to go? Where is it going to go? Where is it going to go? This movie is fucking basura. Despite the increased production budget, the whole thing of Stifler ruining the whole wedding and there not being a good focus on Michelle. It's the wedding. It's Jim and Michelle's wedding, and she doesn't have that big of a prominent role. Like, I get it. The franchise was based off the boys, but Jim's the main character. I'd argue Jim and Kevin are kind of the leads of the first movie in terms of where their storylines are going. And so this movie's about Jim. And we don't get to see much of Michelle, his fucking wife, who's on the cover in the front. I don't think we get to see much expansion on those problems that she was talking about with Noah. We don't get to see as strong a connection other than, she's the hot, horny band nerd. We could have done more with that rather than focusing so much on Stifler trying to fuck her sister. We could have spent more time seeing Jim trying to... It relies so heavily on trying to do like the shocky sex joke humor that it kind of loses the purpose of the movie, which I think is a damn shame because there's a lot of missed opportunities to do stuff, and it's kind of like trying to force it. Like, well, how do we keep Kevin and Oz busy in the movie? What do we have them do? It's like... But actually, no, because Oz wasn't in this one, which is another fucking reason why it's not good. It's fucking trash. It's not a good movie. So let's go. What's the next one? Next one is Let's pull them out and see. We got Girls Rules. We got, is that Beta House? It is. Which one is this? Naked Mile. Naked Mile is a fun time, but we're not there yet. We're not there yet. Here it is. Band Camp. Okay. Where is Band Camp gonna go? Band Camp. Let's see. Is it unwatchable? Is it basura? Does it exist? Is it good? This movie certainly exists. It exists. Does it exist? Nah, it's going to trash. This movie's trash. The reason I bumped it down from exist to trash is because I'm thinking about Matt Stifler as a character, and he's not a likable character. The growth that he shows in the movie is really like at the tail end of it, and so like he's better than his brother, but in that regard, he's just not. He's not really that likable. His romance with what's her name? I'm blanking on the other girl's name. The one that looks like Britney Spears' younger sister. But you know, he just does some really scummy, grimy, creepy shit. Like trying to take videos. Like he's just like he's on super duper extra horny mode, and he's about to sell porn of the people he became friends with. Pour an epicac in the punch, and everyone ends up puking, even though like it was well intentioned, but that's still like kind of a malicious thing to do just so they can win the band competition. And just him not really being that good, and like him having to be forced to learn to be a nice person. Like I appreciate the fact that at the end of the movie everything isn't just quickly resolved, but I still think there could have been way more like ramifications for him. He's just a dick. He's not a likable character. The story is kind of mid. It's kind of meh. And honestly, it could have been more focused on the actual like band chick that he was trying to impress. So yeah, it's trash. It's trash. But the next one, where is it? Is this you? Are you the Naked Mile? You are the Naked Mile. Now, the Naked Mile is not trash. It is very much watchable. It is a watchable ass movie. Thing about Naked Mile is it kind of has no plot. So it should probably go in trash, but I think Eric is such a breath of fresh air. Breath of fresh air. Also, that opening gag is really, really fucking funny. When you get the context later, I'm like, oh, that's why he didn't masturbate in his room. So like I give them credit for like thinking ahead on that. I think the opening scene is so shocking that it's kind of hilarious. So but yeah, the movie doesn't really have a plot other than I'm trying to decide whether or not to cheat on my girlfriend, which isn't much of a plot. You know, he just has a wild weekend. There's a long sequence of just like partying and like chicks spilling drink. Oh wait, no, that part's Beta House. No, that is Naked Mile. Yeah, there are aspects of it that are just really, really forgettable. One of those dudes was one of his friends was just an asshole who never shows up again, really. And they attempted to give him a plot and they kind of gave up on it. So it's like, it's watchable. And there are things to like in it. Like, I really like Eric. I really like Dwight. Those are the first time I really liked a Stifler character. So I gotta give it that much credit. It made me, like Stiflers. Which is it shouldn't be that hard to do, and yet they keep fucking it up. They fucked it up for 4 movies in a row. So yeah, Naked Mile is very much watchable, and you get to see babes in their underwear, so hooray, I guess. But there's some decently funny jokes in there, and I think the opening is pretty strong. So then the next one, it's not that one, no, that's Book of Love. We got Beta House. Beta House is watchable, I say. Despite it being a sequel, it functions fine as a standalone. I think it has, despite us not seeing a classroom, I think cutting back that one friend, since he was going to different college, helps. It focuses, it narrows the movie more. I think the jokes are so crazy and absurd that it makes it funny. It's a little bit more focused because, you know, the title of the movie is the plot of the guys wanting to get into the fraternity and the guys wanting to take down this other fraternity that wants to get rid of them. Is it a dumb plot? Yes, it's really fucking stupid. But it's a plot, which says a lot for these movies. So I think that it's pretty damn funny. I think it's funny. I think it still holds up in terms of the humor. It's dated for sure, and there's some stupid stuff in there like she's got a dick, but you know, I think it's still, for the most part, it's still a pretty funny movie just of how ridiculous it is. There's definitely some stupid wasted stuff in there, like the random other guys that are in the frat that just we don't really get much introduction to. Like Robbie Amell's character has a couple lines and he's sitting in the front row with them. Don't even know his name. Couldn't tell you his name. He barely kind of played a role. Like he's in all the montages and it's like, who the fuck? Who is this man? Whose man is this? But the actual games themselves, I think, are really entertaining. You know, you have the black Darth Maul dude with the double-sided tube fight. You got the greased up pig run, the horse semen Russian roulette, and I think the end is still a really funny way for that to go out. The last challenge with the goat chick. Though I am surprised that they didn't kind of play into the. I feel like they thought about it and forgot to shoot it, of having like the nerdy chick be, you know, turn out to be a hottie at the end that betrays the geeks and ends up going to the beta house. I'm sure they talked about it, but I guess they forgot to add it because it's like, why is he just berating his girlfriend? Because that part's not really funny. He's just like a short asshole. But yeah, Beta House is watchable. I think it's still a pretty watchable movie. Next up, The Book of Love. The Book of Love is watchable, I say. I think the increased production budget really stands out. This actually, you know what? I'm gonna bump this one up. I'm gonna bump this one up. And these aren't actually in line with quality. They're just where I'm putting them. This movie's actually good. If you treat it as a satire, like I said, of the American Pie formula and the American Pie franchise, it's a good movie. If you don't treat it at that, you can knock it down to probably somewhere between exists and probably to watchable. Probably maybe an exist. But I think it's actually good because if you see it as a satire of, you know, 90s sex comedies, almost like a Not Another Teen Movie, but done in an unironic way, I think it's actually effective at what it does. Like, it plays the tired out trope of super horn dog Stifler, and it makes him bland and boring because he is bland and boring. And like, go watch my review on it, and I go into why I think it's actually a pretty good movie. It's a stealth genius movie. You know, gotta be a certain level of IQ to understand American Pie Presents The Book of Love. But I think, you know, it makes it probably has one of the best uses of Noah Levenstein's character as a cameo. I like the creation of the book. I like the montage of going back and having just like different people having played this significant role in the East Great Falls High Bible. I missed the fact that Curtis Armstrong, why he was in the movie, until I looked it up, and I'm like, oh, that's why they cast it. So it's like a meta reference. So like there's some clever things in this movie, despite how it looks. But if you don't treat it as that, then the movie probably knocks down to like an exist. But I think with the context of understanding the other movies and how just kind of sex comedies in a genre function, I think it's actually a pretty good subversion of a lot of those tropes that actually do kind of have a payoff for them, especially with you know, these characters, and they kind of bring up things that I think introduce good conversations kind of in the spirit of the original. So I think it does a lot of things that are actually pretty right. So the next one is American Reunion. So American Reunion. What do I think about Reunion? Reunion is it's watchable. I say. I think it's watchable. I think Reunion is a case where you kind of need the context of at least the first movie and maybe the second movie. You don't really need Wedding because of sex. Um, I think it relies on you having nostalgia for these characters and for the original. So I think that can also that helps it, but I think that also kind of hurts it. Where it's not going to be as strong of a standalone. A lot of the jokes and stuff won't really land as well if you're unfamiliar with these characters. I think they do a good job at reintroducing them and bringing everyone back. Well, just about everyone back, and having them kind of progress forward. I think they do a really good job with that, and introducing new problems with them as adults. I think they do a good job with that and making kind of realistic and relatable that, you know, they didn't go on to live these extreme lives, and, but that they just live kind of mundane and normal lives, except for Oz. But, you know, he still seems to be doing okay. And how different those can look for different people. So I think it does bring up a lot of things, but I think it does kind of rely on your connection to the original kind of strongly in order to get some of the references and whatnot that play a fairly deep role. I think one of the things that's also holding it back from being good is that Stifler doesn't really have a arc that I wanted for him to have. With him being such a significant character, I expected a more humbling experience, and more maturity and realization, or for him to really grapple with that. And then there's the sub arc with Kara trying to sleep with Jim, but it doesn't really go anywhere because we easily see that Jim has enough mental fortitude and is mature enough to be like, no, which I think is nice. I think that's great. Usually in a movie they'd have him like grapple with that. He's like, no, I love my wife. I love my family. And you're like, you're a barely legal kid. He's genuinely doesn't seem like he acknowledges that she's attractive, but I don't think he's really attracted to her. Like, I think he very much loves Michelle and is very much has a strong connection to Michelle. He just hasn't had a lot of sex. That's all it is, because he's a parent and a father. You know, he's a father and a working man. But yeah, the movie's watchable, for the most part, if you don't have that context. I think with the context, it's like a higher watchable, but I don't know if I'd really put it all the way good yet. And then the last one, Girls Rules. Girls Rules. Where does it fit? Where will it go? Is it Basuda? You will soon know. Does it exist? Girls Rules is an interesting case. I'm gonna put it at exists. I personally like the movie. If I'm doing this for me, I'd probably bump it up to a watchable. However, in considering this for other people, I'll put it in exist. I think it's very much by the books. It's super duper predictable. The characters aren't really anything new. It's not reinventing the wheel. I think as a spin-off and kind of a reinterpretation of the original movie, I think it's fairly effective. You know, them playing teenagers, I think it's still weird and kind of creepy and gross. But I think it still does a good job at what it's trying to do. I found it funny. I thought like the humor landed for me. There actually weren't there wasn't really any nudity in it. Like, there was sex in it, but there wasn't, I don't think, any nudity in it. I think the R rating comes more from like the swearing and the content that's related to. In fact, this is probably, there's a weird trend in these movies, but they're actually pretty sex positive to a small degree. You know, they had a couple dated homophobic jokes, but in terms of like actual sex and sex safety, like they encourage consent, condom use. This one brings up fucking dental dams, emotional connections with lovers, for like significant, you know, sexual moments. Like, that's something that's brought up in this movie. I think this is probably like the wokest one, but not in a way that's like inherent or overt. Aside from that run in with the lady at the sex shop. That was weird, but I think this is still like it's a weirdly kind of sex positive movie, I guess, because there's women in it. But it's not a genius movie. I don't think it's gonna catch anyone off guard or reinvent the wheel. But I think it's like a solid, entertaining time. Like if you have an hour and a half to just kill before like a flight or something, I'd say watch it. It's on Netflix, which I think makes it really accessible, unlike the rest of these. So I think it's worth a watch. I think it's pretty entertaining. But yeah, it exists. It definitely exists, and I think it just as for a casual person, they're probably not gonna remember much of it. Maybe they'll just remember Madison Pettis' ass hanging by a rail, but yeah. So, on that note, I think that's it. That's my ranking. So, what do you think? How would you rank the movies? How would you rank the American Pie movies? Let me know down in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video. Also, let me know your thoughts about my mini pitches for where to take the franchise, and let me know about those down in the comments below. So yeah, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below about everything I talked about today. How do you rank the movies? Where would you take the franchise if you were Adam Hers or running the ship at Universal Pictures or whatever? Like we need a new one. But yeah, thank you for watching my video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. Hit that bell to be notified when I make new content. Check out my podcast, the Ace Podcast, which is linked down below. And with that, I will see you next time. Have a good one. Oh, I'm Will the Greatest. The greatest one. Have a good one. This bed is on fire.